So I've been slowly trying to, I moved down to 10 cups, and then I went down, I was at like 9 cups, and so I've been trying them like.
Does your kid warm or does it play with that?
No, warm is what I like, actually. If it's too hot, I put ice in my coffee. I got the drink.
Or the chill on it?
Well, the bowl, I had
Right, I remember that, yeah.
warmer, so you set it on there.
Well, that's where you start
That's fine.
look at what sugar.
We're good.
I didn't realize you drove your machine right to work, or right to the school here today, huh? It's got a little more parked on the sidewalk.
See the forecast?
Well, I saw a chance of storms and 5, 6 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I gotta be back on all that. So I said, well, my house is our team. Yeah. Yeah, but he's been good and fine with working for you. Yeah, they got looked over. So when you talk.
Keep talking. Probably some other people talking that.
So it's on right now, we can't just flip it on with that 6.
You could, but
Okay, but we're learning.
we're learning.
No, we have to. Next Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Everybody ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Derek. Here. Tim. Here. Lee. Here. Melissa's sick. Mike's here. Dan.
Here.
Spencer.
Here.
Craig.
Here.
Nate. Here. Sue.
Here.
John.
Here.
Gretchen is not here. Maggie is not here. Eddie is here. All right, adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Spencer moves it. Derek seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Right, Warrior Pride, this would be a resolution accepting donations from, it'd be monetary donations from the Lions Club of Eitzen, Brownsville, and Caledonia for the Eagle Bluff field trip, and another monetary donation from American Legion Post 191 for the BPA program. Derek moves it. Okay, Dan seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. All right, before we move on, so we're trying to this live stream thing. Is it up and running?
Yeah.
So is it looking at me like right now? It is.
This camera should shift around. It follows.
Follows the noise. Okay, so just so you all know, that this is we're giving it a whirl. It's our first shot at it. We'll see how it works. Okay, so board showcase. We'd like to thank Maggie. She couldn't be here tonight for her last year as a student school board representative. Did we get good with that? All right. And then we have Kraus Anderson here to present the facilities update.
Well, good evening. My name is Travis Stevenson with Carl Sanderson Construction. Joining me will be Kevin Bills from ISG, who will be going over some space studies and inadequacies and things when I'm done with my presentation. And behind me is Chad Pike and Jason Peterson, also from Carl Sanderson. So about 6 to 8 weeks ago, I was down here with a colleague, and we went through the elementary, middle school, and we did a site interview. We walked the buildings and gathered information and put together all the costing estimates and whatnot, and put together a PowerPoint, which is our executive summary, which I'll be sharing with you tonight. Our process on the facility condition assessment, we do a site interview, we get all the information from dates, times, when things happen, any pain points that the district may be having, and from there, we move through 17 divisions of construction, starting on the outside of the building with your sites, grounds, parking lots, fields, bleachers, things of those natures, and move up to the building, windows, doors, brick, door, and then we come inside the building, look at all your interior construction, your mechanical, your electrical, plumbing, roofs, and everything that are in the building. So we're not, it's not we're not to the part where we don't take the walls down or anything. We just look at existing pieces of equipment, and it comes on to a deferred maintenance plan. Kevin will be going over the space planning, and we'll be sharing next steps at the end.
I did mention to these guys the other day about our plumbing issue that we had last week, so.
We did.
So they obviously didn't go in underneath the floors and look at the pipes.
Yeah, it's a non-invasive, but we did capture, some of the plumbing for the elementary bathrooms. That would be part of that construction cost. There is a placeholder within the spreadsheet. We'll dig in and we'll get a more defined number as we go through. I can see an error already, a typo, that's on me. It's actually 2 schools that we did, it's not 5 county facilities. I'm not sure why that transposed, but it's been changed. We identified $29.8 million in deferred maintenance needs over 10 years. The elementary rated out in fair condition, and middle school rated out in fair as well. And key findings were roofs that are near the end of life, HVAC systems, mechanical controls, and the exterior envelope, doors, windows, expansion joints, and some interior construction at the elementary restrooms. This is part of our portal. This is what the district gets, and beyond this process, we'll still be fine, go over with the district, level it out, do all the things, and this will get turned over, and they'll be able to utilize this for a perpetual plan where as things get changed or modified, it'll go out with dates and times and things of that nature. And everything that total transparency, whatever we did, it goes into this portal, from photos to the costs to this executive report. So this is what the chart looks like currently, with some leveling, I think, in a later slide. We completed a facility condition assessment for roughly about 250,000 square feet. Right now, a lot of its stuff is showing 2025. We've since leveled that off. It's definitely that bar graph. That's where the deferred maintenance. Blue would be the elementary, orange is the high school. It's much smaller now in 2025 and 2026. In 27, 28 would be more project-related things, and the rest levels off 29 through 34. This next slide is what we refer to as our FCI slide. So federal facility condition index. Basically, it's your deferred maintenance totals over what a building replacement cost would be. You can see where the elementary has 8.7, 9.4 at the high school. They both rate out in that fair category. Okay. This kind of breaks down where dollars, kind of gives you a bar graph chart and where the years are currently. And again, this has been leveled out, so these numbers will be more reflective in 27 and 28 and leveled 29 through 34. On this one, if everybody can see it, it's the 17 divisions of construction, starting with site work. You got the exterior roofs, interior construction. I'll talk more on that in a little bit. It's a little more, not a fluffy, but it's a squishy number. Those things can move off the plan, away from the plan. That's more of your carpeting, very low priority, not gonna, stop any school or anything like that. Painting, ceiling grid, things of that nature. And then you've got some quick furniture, special construction, which would be bleachers, conveying system, which would be your elevators, fire protection, plumbing, HVAC, and HVAC controls, and electrical. So digging a little, for the next 2 years, I've actually broke this into 4. Your costing for the bucketed deferred maintenance needs would be 7.5 at the elementary, middle and high school would be 13.3, giving an overall number of 20 million. Next slide, basically, this is just kind of showing you, on the left would be, we look at things, we rate them good, fair, poor, critical. Excellent would be like, just installed, brand new. A lot of things on the left side, a lot of things are in that fair condition wise. You got a few things that are in the poor range. Overall, pretty good. The one on the right would be criticality. That's more low criticality, where is your green bars. Those would be carpeting, things that aren't going to impact anything in your instructional day. Your medium are going to be windows, doors, your brick, and things of that nature. High criticality, things that could impact or interrupt a school day, HVAC, roofs, your electrical. So breaking this down even further, so things that are falling into that high criticality, into that poor and critical range, and things that are at end of life, you're looking at 2.4 at the elementary and 6.7 at the high school. So total project related things would be about 9.1 million.
Is this the wrong,
It might have been the wrong slide deck. It's all I can speak to it. So we've since changed that photo. It's actually the one out front. You're fine though.
Okay.
So this would be the overall at the elementary. Again, you're going to see that interior construction, that squishy number. That's going to be your highest bar. On that, you're going to have some fire protection, HVAC, and mechanical controls. And things at the elementary that would kind of hit that list would be elevator, roofing, your exterior enclosure, HVAC, electrical, and your interior construction of your old restrooms and plumbing. This would be the high school. The number has come down drastically with the site work. It's actually closer to that 1.7. All of that, parking lots are a very small fraction of that, sub 300,000. Overall parking lot conditions are in really good condition. There'll be like just a seal coat later down in the process in 2029, 2030, and then just the kind of the path around the football field by the fence that would need to be a mill and overlay. Roofs are at the end of their life. The interior construction again goes up, but that can be pushed out into that 10, 15 year kind of range. And then the HVAC system, it's a geothermal, 3 multi-stacks, numerous heat pumps. They're all getting at that end of life. So those will be hitting this plan out there in 27, 28. Roofing, it would be replacing of that EPDM roof, HVAC. The equipment would be, again, the heat pumps and the multi-stack. mechanical control, actuators, and the sensors as you see on the screen, they're nearing their end of life, and just upgrades to just those boxes, it would be the actual low voltage. And the generator is also getting pretty close to the end of life. Interior construction, it's overall in really, decent shape, but there'll be bits and pieces throughout the years, between carpeting and whatnot, and some touch-up paint that'll be needed, some dollars allocated towards it. So what we've seen, buildings, they've been assessed, quantified, and estimated through FCA. The next steps, school board to determine the approach to resolve deferred maintenance needs and space planning needs. The balancing has kind of happened within this 10-year plan of the 28.3 million over the next 10 years. And the space needs, which Kevin will go over here shortly. Any questions?
There's a lot there. Did you guys look at the press box out at the football field at all?
Yeah, there are dollars allocated to the press box.
So where would that fall under what segment?
So that would be underneath site work.
Site?
Yep.
What was your thoughts on the press? Did you look at it personally at all?
One of my colleagues looked at it and, there was some allowance dollars that, put towards it. I think it was either Matt or Craig mentioned that needs some little bit of work in the coming years. So we put some dollars towards it.
Yeah.
And that falls a little bit under that space needs, and I think Greg and I have talked about the size of that can be a challenge too. So it's kind of a blend between the two of like, what does it need to do to just maintain it, right? To keep it functioning versus is it functioning well? So.
Yeah. I mean, there's water running into the, there's a hole in the road.
Right.
So it needs to be done there. But, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis, appreciate it. Kevin, are you
Yes.
going next?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So while Travis and team were taking the footsteps around the building, we also wanted to get staff input as far as how the spaces are working. So the way I like to describe this is we want to understand the facility maintenance needs. What does it take to maintain the buildings? That's what Travis and team have been doing. But we also want to get an idea of what spaces from a operations perspective are working well, what spaces are maybe a challenge, or elements within those spaces are a challenge. So Craig, you can jump to the next slide. So what we do, maybe my presentation isn't as friendly as Travis's was. But what we do is we do a all staff survey. This happened probably a month and a half ago. We sent it out via email. And we had a total of 87 responses. So Craig, I think that puts us a little over 70% response rate. So very good response rate across both buildings. And what we're looking for is feedback on a variety of categories, from parking lots to classroom spaces, to office, to support spaces. How does it fit, to even comfort, HVAC, like is your lighting proper in your spaces, things like that. And so all staff get to comment on these different areas, and then they can also provide, or I should say prioritize it, like great, good, fair, or doesn't apply. And then they can also provide comments as well. And that's where we really get some great information on this. Staff are great about sharing feedback of like why maybe something is a challenge or why something works well. So that gives us some really good information as we start this process and gathering the needs. So Craig, you want to jump to the next slide? What we'll do, you just jump right to the next one. We break it down by building as well. So at the elementary school, we had 56 responses, and we kind of break it into these different categories. So we'll start there. The safety piece, the comments were just that the flow is very close, but just the function of some of the doors is not ideal for secure entrance. So just some adjustments there on the safety. A comment about the playground feeling locked in by the fencing. Like obviously we want a secure playground perimeter, but just some of the configuration of the fencing area. There was some feedback on that. Parking, I think you're always gonna have parking comments on this site. It's a tight site. In conversations that we've had, I think you guys have done what you can to make that flow as fast as possible. So I think continue to look for those operational improvements, right, as they may come. There, again, additional parking spaces would be great, but in-town schools, it's a challenge, so we get that. And then just a comment, this is, we actually had a conversation about this, the district already has a crossing guard at this spot, but congestion in the parking lot in the morning when we have kids sometimes crossing those areas, so those crossing guards are an important part. Comfort inside the spaces, some temperature fluctuations. So here's where you see some of the things that Travis talked about, where we may have different HVAC updates and needs. Right, from a facility maintenance, they kind of overlap a little bit with the space needs or feedback from staff. Intercom sound variances, that's not uncommon if some of those things are a little older. And then noise level in the cafeteria, very common in elementary schools. But can definitely be addressed as far as acoustics and wall treatments and such. Learning spaces, we see this a lot in older schools, additional outlets. When you think about when this building was built, Travis, would you say 1962? They never would have anticipated the number of devices and technology that we have in these spaces now. So a lot of times when we are updating a space, we do look at, adding more outlets, things like that. Noise barriers, that's like the transfer between rooms, being thoughtful about that. And then as we go, updating furniture, bookcases and flooring throughout those spaces. Lack of flexibility in spaces, this is, I would say, something over the last 15 to 20 years has been important. Development in education space design, having the ability to adapt spaces to what sort of curriculum or learning style we need to do with that particular curriculum. So that's, again, when it was originally built in 1962, would not have been anticipated the different learning styles that teachers are using now as well to connect with students. And then confidentiality challenges in office space. So what this means is the ability to have maybe a private conversation with parents or a staff member if needed, while you also have staff or students or other visitors in the office area. That can be a challenge. And then the support spaces. So we talked about restrooms already, came up in the staff survey as well. The teacher's lounge could use an update. Additional toilet/hand washing station in the kindergarten area. Pre-K indoor activity space. So that was something that was brought up as well. Space for those kiddos to go when weather might not be as great. And then the other thing that we do is in the survey, we ask staff, what do you think is the greatest need across the district? So maybe it lets them to start to think maybe even beyond their building a little bit. And the weight room expansion at the middle high school did come up even in the elementary survey. So we saw quite a few responses consistently about that, recognizing that was a challenge. The other thing I would just say here back to the restrooms is that second floor of this building doesn't have a staff bathroom, I don't believe. So, just being thoughtful about that as far as the dispersion of those restrooms. Go to the middle high school. So the middle high school, we had the middle school, we had 16 responses. High school, we had 13 responses. And so again, here, the safety, this one could go into probably another category. This is just where staff commented on it. But in the science labs, they're using the peninsulas of their student stations or student desks as well. So not ideal from a layout perspective and probably flexibility perspective more so. Ability to lock cabinets. We see this a lot. Some districts and staff want to be able to lock cabinets, some don't, right? So we do see that come up in staff surveys often. In parking category, parking for elders, I think this could go both ways. I think you have a very nice setup at the middle high school, but it is a decent distance from the accessible stalls to the main entrance. So I think just recognizing that I don't think there's a simple solution. Obviously, you guys have done a very nice job with the updates to that parking lot as well. The other thing that was mentioned was an ADA curb cut near the middle school entrance. So that'd be, I'll say, if you're
Left of
facing,
the main entrance.
yes, left of the main entrance. We have some special ed classrooms just inside that door. And so I'm anticipating when those students are either coming to school or leaving, they're probably getting dropped off and going in that door. So that was something that was brought up, and we recognize that. Comfort-wise, some spaces, and this is, I think the comments were more, we have some interior spaces that just lack some windows, natural light. So we recognize that and want to be thoughtful about what classroom functions are going on in those spaces. Temperature fluctuation, so again, those HVAC and HVAC controls are important, and the intercom and sound variances. Learning spaces on the upper right, talk about additional storage. We see that one a lot, especially in middle and high school. Lack of outlets. Again, some of those spaces, the programming and function of the spaces may have changed over the years, right? And we may need more technology. Then noise transfer between spaces, and starting to look at furniture upgrades in some of the spaces. And then support spaces, flexibility of student breakout space was something that came up as a theme. Additional CT or tech ed space was a common theme. Technology updates, the same confidentiality in the office area comment, and then need for a middle school gym space was brought up, the weight room, and then updates to the teacher lounge. So it kind of gives you, what we really like about this is that one, it gets the staff involved early on and just gathering the data, gives them a chance to share their thoughts and maybe challenges or opinions or what works well. So Craig, I think that was the last ed adequacy slide, if I remember right. So I'll pause there. Any questions? I know it's a lot of information, and feel free to look through that more. I know this is the first time you guys will be seeing this. But like I said, we really like this because it gets the staff involved in the process a little bit early on here as well. Any questions on that? Or Craig, anything else that you would add?
No, I don't think so.
As far as the responses are concerned, 56 in the high school, about 28, somewhere in there in the, or I'm sorry, it was 56 in elementary, about 28 in the middle school, high school. Is that just because this is an older building, or is that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Some of these areas of concern, did any stand out more than others? I mean, do you have like a bar chart?
it's interesting. Yeah, it is. And I was wondering if at the end of the school year, what are you going to give for feedback? Like, everyone's ready for the school year to be out, but honestly, your staff graded everything fairly high. Like, there's only a few things that if there's a great, good, fair, poor, I would say out of all of them at both buildings, there may be 5 that were like equal amount poor as equal amount good, right? Most of them were in that great to good or fair category. And then you just see a few, like some of the things that probably doesn't surprise us, like restrooms, right? So at the elementary, that could use some updates. Those ones you saw a few poor there, for example. So, but no major concerns, I would say. So, yeah. And I think the things that you saw us highlight there, that's probably the biggest themes that did come out of those rankings and the comments, I would say too.
Okay,
Yeah, good question.
sounds good.
Any surprises to anyone?
Cost factor is always a surprise.
That's fair.
Sticker shock.
So Craig, if you actually go back one slide, so I think that's a good point, right? What we want to do is understand the needs and not jump to designing concepts or ideas without a reason why, right? So that's why we started with this, gathering the facility assessment needs, gathering the adequacy needs. Now we'll take that, go back and say, okay, which of these, as a district, do we really want to dig into further? Like, for example, some of them take space in order to do the repurposing or additional space to do. The example I would use is Tech Ed, right? If we want to look at expanding that, do we have space in the middle high school to really do that or not? A restroom update, I'm not worried about that from like a space perspective. We've got the space, it's just updating those spaces. So that's really what we would be our next step. So kind of going from left to right. Options development is what we call, where we would go and start to look at the actual floor plan, develop some ideas of how could we address some of these things. And then we would come back to you. We would work with the Cross Anderson team on what does something like this cost, right? To either renovate or a change to the building configuration. And then we start to prioritize. Like, if we see a cost on a Tech Ed expansion, like that just doesn't seem feasible right at this point. So that's, to your point, that's what we want to get to, but we want to have a kind of a data-driven process on how we get there and why that's a priority that we want to consider. Any questions?
I must have missed something. What does ISG stand for?
INS Group. So originated out of Mankato.
Okay, so what's the difference between ISG and Crouse Anderson?
So ISG is the architecture engineering firm.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So next step is basically meet with the facility committee and start like prioritizing
Yeah,
some of
then
this
we
stuff
can-
or what?
The big, how many page, 1,200 page report? I have access to that, and we could maybe dig into that a little further with the facilities group. And obviously, we knew the roofs were nearing their end of life. The heat pumps, no shocker there that we need to replace those. They're 22 years old and have a life expectancy of 20 years. So those types of things we knew. We knew about the bathrooms that needed to be updated. We suspected, and now maybe have some confirmation that the underground piping also is not so good. So those are, in my mind, the roof and the plumbing and the envelope are those critical things, and then things like carpet and those types of things are more wants than needs, but that's why we have to prioritize it, in my opinion.
All right, well, thank you, Kevin. And Travis, appreciate it, guys.
Thanks.
All good then
So
on that department? All right.
you guys are welcome to stay if
Yeah,
you want,
hang
but I'm
out.
sure you have other things to do.
Chad's got to weigh in for a tournament tomorrow.
Yeah,
exactly. There's your state champion from Minnesota there.
Oh, really?
Him and his brother Brad. You guys win 300 between you.
Glad to.
Yeah, that, yeah, good employees from Hayfield.
Thanks for coming, guys. Okay, so the next thing on the board showcase is that Minnesota State High School League presentation that we watched last year, but we have to watch it every year, is that correct?
I don't know if we have to.
The
Didn't
league-
we watch it on our own?
Yeah, can we do it on our own? The last time the audio was very, wasn't good. And we've all watched it in person and have access to it. And it's the exact same video from last year. I thought it was. So we good with that one? All right, moving on. Student school board member report, Daddy.
So graduation is this Friday. Honor Society inducted new members, so juniors and sophomores. Spring sports is going well for all the teams. Baseball and softball both got pretty high seeds in their tournaments. And then BPA went to nationals in Chicago. And then Jesse Stoltz and Lawrence Stigler both placed high in the categories they competed in. And then the middle school had a spring carnival today, and then the student council helped provide games and gave them a fun time.
Thank you, Addie. So are we who's gonna replace Maggie?
I have to find a current sophomore in order to do that. So,
All right, any leads?
Well, what I've done in the past, which is probably a good reminder, being there's 2 days of school left, is I put out a survey to students if they were interested, and then from there kind of
Okay,
whittled it down. So
all right.
I'll get on that.
Sounds good. All right, no public comment today, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, consent agenda. All right, Spencer moves this consent agenda. I'll second it, Mike seconds. Before we vote, any questions on it? Okay, in that case, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Action items. Action item A is staffing. This would be the reducing the educational programs and positions. The 2 elementary full-time positions. Is there any discussion on that?
Can you refresh my memory?
So we have 43 students in next year's kindergarten and next year's first grade currently, so it would be going from 3 sections of each to 2 sections of each, putting them at 21 and 22 students in kindergarten and first grade for next year with this reduction.
But we still, where we have a third section in another grade though, right?
We added a 3rd section of 3rd grade for next year in April.
So then.
You good with that? Okay. In that case, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Dan seconds the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Okay, that resolution passed 6-0. You good with that, Karen?
Mhm.
All right. This would be the termination of a non-renewal of a probationary teacher. Any discussions on that?
What is a probationary teacher? Non-tenured.
Non-tenured, so 3 years or less. Well, depending if a teacher has achieved tenure in a different district, and then we hire them, then after the first year they would be offered a tenured position. They would have one probationary year. But if they've not been tenured in another district, they would have 3 years of a probationary period, which is the case here.
That's even if they come from out of state. Is it all standard then, or?
I believe it has to be tenured within the state.
Which that actually changed last legislative session. It used to be that if you came from La Crosse and you came to Caledonia, let's just say, you would have to do 3 years because you've never been tenured within the state of Minnesota. My understanding is that has changed at last year's legislative session, that if you had tenure anywhere, that Minnesota would honor it.
Okay. Would
Need a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, Dan would moves. Derek seconds it. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Derek seconded.
And this next one was, we hired Mike Stefanidis, who did not have a teaching license, but was hired under a tiered licensure. His former life as a dentist gave him a lot of biological experience, and he was issued a tiered license to teach biology for us. And then when you have a tiered licensure, you have to post for correct licensure, which we did, and we had somebody that applied and interviewed, and we made an offer to them that they've accepted. And Mike's fantastic, but he knew this was the deal when he signed it.
I just want to say thanks to Mike. I know he's not here, but, to come into a class that was, about 3 weeks in, having never taught before. He spent a lot of countless hours, as I know all teachers do, but he really kind of had to, it was learn as you go. And so I really appreciate everything Mike did, so.
Will he be a support? Is he available to be a support staff?
I have been in contact with him about some future employment opportunities within the district, yes. And I do have a letter of interest at this point, yes. Hoping to keep him on board.
Excellent. All right, Derek moves that resolution. We have a second. Lee seconded it. Okay, and all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The resolution carries 6-0. This would be a resolution for the unrequested leave of absence. And then right after that, we have the ratification of that same teacher back at a 0.82. Does everybody understand the procedural thing here that's going on?
Is Tessa happy with that? Or aren't we to that one?
Well, we're to that
Yeah,
one
that's
yet,
what I
and I'm not 100% sure what our thoughts are on it, I guess. But the discussion at the last meeting was, the decision was made not to eliminate the Spanish program, but due to enrollment issues, we were gonna bring it back at a reduced schedule. Correct me if I'm saying anything that's kind of incorrect here.
No, at present, I believe we have 31 kids signed up for Spanish 2 and 31 kids signed up for Spanish 1. So that would be 2 classes of each, at 15 and 16 kids per class. And this year, there were 5 sections, 3 Spanish 1s and 2 Spanish 2s.
Correct.
So it's basically reducing the 1 Spanish 1 position. And we were told the cleanest way to do it would be to reduce the position entirely and then add back at another meeting, but that seems silly and redundant to me. And we talked that if we can do it all the same night, that's what we'd like to do. So
Right, so
avoids a little confusion.
it's a procedural thing, we gotta eliminate it and then bring it back at a reduced amount. So the first one would be to the resolution for proposing an unrequested leave of absence, and then the next one will be the ratification of that teacher back. Okay? Any questions? All right, well then on action item D here, the unrequested leave of absence, I'll move that one. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Dan seconds that one. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Action item E would be to ratify the teacher contract for Tessa Larson.
So moved.
All right, Spencer
Second.
moves it. Derek seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. And then action item F here would be the resolution of membership into the Minnesota State High School League.
So moved.
Spencer moves it.
Second.
Dan seconds. All right, and do we need to vote on that, Derek? The Minnesota State High School League, or?
Yes.
We do, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. And that carries 6-0. All right, moving right along, down to administrative reports
Sure.
this
Okay.
week.
Yeah, so our patrol picnic was held on Friday, May 10th. Again, we were most fortunate to have had so many safety patrol volunteers this year, and they do a fantastic job. Just how I want to give her a shout out too, because I don't know if everybody realizes that that's a huge time commitment, and it's all voluntary on her part. Also thanks to our parent chaperones and our custodian Brandon Jones, who helped with our picnic. Ola Core, I see that later in the administrative reports that Craig talks about the days that we're looking at having synchronous groupings. And we also talked, it's not on here, but Gretchen's not here either, but we talked about having letters for early childhood instead of our core training for our early childhood teachers, because it would be better suited for our preschoolers. Just recently, we had our Wax Museum and Science Fair. It takes much time and effort for both the teachers and the students, and the outcome is worth it. Another shout out again to our custodians, our kitchen help, because we were manifesting both what's going on with our trying to get ready for our science fair and for our wax museum at the same time that we're trying to serve lunch in the gym. So it took a coordinated effort, and everybody, it's like, we have an awesome staff. Everybody rose to the occasion, and it really went without a hitch. Last Friday, we had our field day on May 17th. Thank you to Scott Kepke and Bob Burmester who helped plan the activities, and the parent volunteers. Karen, thank you very much. We were very busy in the office, but between Karen, I, and Carol, it's like we went through the day. It was smooth, and so really appreciate that. I don't know if you guys realize also that our office staff helps out in it.
Question,
And
Sue,
very
you
ways.
still get the big crowd of parents to
We
come
do.
on that
It was
field
like,
day,
yeah, shoulder to shoulder in there, but
taking the photos and everything.
Yeah. It's good to get that
It's
turned
a neat
out.
day.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that Mr. and Mrs. Mullins, they're exhausted by the end of it, but every year they're like, why do we do that? And I'm so glad that we did it. So it's well worth the effort. We are going to be having our award ceremony for grades K through 5 this Wednesday at 9 a.m. Several awards will be presented. We did reach out to the parents to let them know if their child would be receiving an award. Also, we are going to have our 5th grade promotion on May 22nd at 10 a.m. In the school gym. Everybody is welcome, and thanks also to Mrs. Fengen, Mr. Haybeisen, Mrs. Myrie, and our PACE group who all helped to pull this together. So all of our teacher observations have been completed. Thank you, Mr. Walton, for helping with that, as well as all of our para and support staff emails. Report cards, this is a typo. It says we'll go home on Thursday, the last day of school. The last day of school is on Wednesday. So the parents can be expecting those to come home with their kiddos. Thank you to Lorraine Ryan and Carrie Schaller. They are going to have huge shoes to fill. We do have people who have indicated interest within our district for that media center position, and we have good candidates coming up too, but Lorraine and Carrie, and especially Lorraine, because she's done it for many, many years, and Carrie does a great job too. And last but not least, thank you. It's been a great year, and it's due to the combined efforts of everyone. Thank you, school board members. I know sometimes it can be a thankless job. Our entire staff, teachers, paras, counselors, school nurses, custodians, bus drivers, cooks, coaches, and office staff. Also our PACE group, volunteers, our students, parents, and community members. It truly does take a village to educate and to support our educational environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Any questions for Sue? Mr. Bowler?
All right, just to buzz through a few things. We finished up MCA testing. That went, I thought, overall very smooth this year. We've looked at some of the preliminary results, and I think Craig has shared some with the board. Those don't become public until August, so again, they're unofficial results, but saw some really nice increases, especially at the middle school level. Stayed very consistent in high school reading and science. We did see a little decrease in the high school math. But overall, we were pleased with those. We did our Caledonia Neighbors Day on April 19th, and I don't know if you guys remember, we about blew away that particular day. It was super windy, but we got out, and you know what, the kids, for the most part, really seemed to enjoy it. So I had a couple who offered to do it every Friday if I would let them, so it was kind of fun. But we had our school school forest ribbon cutting on April 24th, and I don't know if you guys saw the Argus. There was a nice little write-up in there. lot going on in terms of, we had middle school awards and graduation on the 10th. Last Wednesday was very quiet with 6th graders in the city, 7th grade at Eagle Bluff, and seniors who all had the flu that day. It was senior skip day. So it was a pretty quiet day on that Wednesday. Probably the biggest thing for us we completely remade the schedule after our last school board meeting. So we got that out. Students had a chance to register for classes, and they will go home with schedules tomorrow. So we met our goal at the end of the year. So a huge thank you to Nicole Ott and Angie Morgan, because they put in a lot of hours to input those. I'm still expecting a few tweaks in there as well. Then just a reminder, a couple upcoming events. Tomorrow night is senior awards night at 7 o'clock, and then graduation is on Friday at 6 p.m. I would say 5:30. Before that. But yeah, we have, tomorrow is our graduation rehearsal and then senior picnic. So they're looking for some alternative spaces to hold the picnic because the weather does not look very nice. Tomorrow? That's tomorrow. We do our walkthroughs through the elementary school, St. John, St. Mary's. They do the graduation walk. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on, but it's been a good year. So I was talking to a couple students, high school students at lunch today, and they said, "Oh, are you ready for the end of the school year?" I said, "You know what? I am now ready." Like I wasn't, but I can just, it's got that feeling in the air that it's nice. People are ready to get out and enjoy summer. So, but no, huge thank you. So,
Thank you, Nate.
yep, you're welcome.
Mr. John?
Go ahead.
Well, the only thing I was gonna add was relative to our, one of our strategic goals about mental health and opportunities for services and things of that nature. Craig can probably piggyback on the details of that, but I thought that was most relevant to one of our district goals. And definitely a good step forward. There's a lot of things to continue to talk about with that, co-oping with them, but yeah, Craig's gonna probably mention as well. That's the only thing I would like to add. So,
Cool. Thank you, John.
Yep.
Gretchen's not here. We've all had an opportunity to read her thing. Everybody good with that, or do you want to go over it, Craig, or what?
I can if you want, but
The link's there.
Oh, yeah.
We've read it.
Okay.
Okay, Craig.
all right. You guys already in the consent agenda approved the request for proposals, so I'll need to send that out publicly. There are a few vendors that I know are interested in bidding it, and then we have to do a public notice of that too. And that again is for the distributed antenna system, which will allow the emergency radios to work inside the buildings. Solar projects are nearly completed. We're waiting for the company that does the underground boring to get the cabling hooked up to the buildings, and then we should be producing electricity. I don't know if that's gone, but I don't know if he has any updates on that. Haven't heard anything recently, but it sounds like that outfit is busy. Obviously, when frost gets out of the ground, they probably have a lot of jobs to do. I shared the Winona Community Hub is a new relationship that we're going to be working with them. They work through grants to provide resources for families, and there's a link here that shows what they do. But if somebody's trying to figure out how they can get any sort of services, they have people that will help them. This is no cost to us. They are affiliated with Family and Children's Centers, FCC stands for, which we also are aligning with to allow them to come into our building and serve kids, much similar to Hiawatha Valley Mental Health. In fact, I think they use the same grant to fund their stuff, but this will be no cost to us with FCC. So
Let's start. in the fall.
It's actually gonna start in June.
Good.
And they did it last June too, FCC did, but I believe they were out of the courthouse. And this year, we're gonna have a space for them, which we haven't quite nailed down yet, but.
And as far as the parents finding out about it, is it something that'll be, that they all know about now through?
I don't think so, because we haven't finalized the details. In fact, I have a contract in my office that I have to send back to them, or it's not really a contract, it's a memorandum of understanding of how things will work. But I think after that, then we'll try and figure out what to do there for advertising and things of that nature. Educational support staff negotiations has met 3 times now, because we met just prior to this meeting. Well, I guess, was that the second time? Third time.
Third.
And we have another meeting scheduled for May 28th. We're getting pretty close. And then the principal group will be next for that. Matt has already reached out to the facilities committee members. There could be potentially some significant plumbing issues. We're up and running right now. I forget the gentleman's name. Chase, last name?
Munson.
Chase Munson came in and did some, got us going again, drilled out the blockage and got us going, and but he's gonna come back and take a look now that things have, hopefully there's clear water running through there, and see what we have. He was fairly convinced that there probably were holes in the bottom of the pipe where the clog was. Might just be a low area that over 60 some years of chemicals going through there and sitting in that low spot has eroded the pipe from the middle, but we'll find out about that. My guess would be that we have 2 options: replace the current pipes, which would involve opening up the floors and removing the concrete, and be pretty invasive and time consuming. The second one would be kind of roto-rootering the pipes that we have and then lining them with the fiberglass thing, which is expensive, probably similar in cost to putting in new pipe, but less invasive, if that makes sense. Is that your understanding, Barb, too, when we talk?
Yeah, I think they're the only one.
No.
Just made it sound like it's gonna be quite large.
Yeah. Yeah, either way, it's going to be very expensive. And it sounds like the fiberglass has like a 50-year guarantee, which I don't know if the pipes, depends on what you put in, I suppose, but the facilities committee will definitely have things to discuss there in the near future. And as Sue mentioned, want to give a shout out to our custodial staff, kitchen staff, and teachers, especially Bob. He kind of took his classroom over to serve lunch, and fortunately it was nice. He was able to go outside for fun and things like that. But as Sue mentioned, we have a fantastic staff that did a nice job adapting to our conditions. The Juvenile Detention Center, when I last corresponded 2 weeks ago, I think, with the county, they did not yet have the application to apply for the Juvenile Detention Center because they were making a new one. It's been that long since a Juvenile Detention Center has, a new one has cropped up in the state, so they're making a new application. And because of that, I haven't kind of done a whole lot with it because I didn't want to get approved for a new school if the detention center isn't approved. But we kind of have to keep going with that because they would really like us to start when we start school. And my understanding is that it might take about 90 days for the state to approve a new school. So we'll see where that ends up going.
Now, the students that be coming to Houston County, where are they currently being held?
All over. for lack of a better term. They were talking, essentially, what I was told was the southern half of the state would be the primary grounds, because there really isn't anything in the southern half of the state.
There are two facilities in the metro area, the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and there's a long-term facility in Bemidji. Other than there's one in that's long-term
That's Prairie Lakes.
too, right?
Yeah.
So,
The focus on this would be short-term,
correct,
which could be
up to 8
8 days.
school days.
But then the education part obviously falls on us, but did you guys, did the sheriff and the county board resolve the payment up front and reimbursement to us? I mean, are they gonna be trying to get the funds from the responsible community and get those to the school district, or? is
That will
on
be,
the
that will
school?
be on the school to get the funds from the resident district of the student. But there was talk about the county, and I don't know about the legalities of all this, but the county is interested in making sure that the school district does not incur costs. And they're interested in working out some sort of deal, but I don't know how all that works. There's legal things that we probably need to consider there too. The first hurdle is to get the juvenile detention center approved by the Department of Corrections, and we haven't cleared that one yet, so. Nathan mentioned graduation at 6 p.m. on Friday. I too want to thank Lorene and Carrie with combined, I believe, 56 years of service to the district that are retiring. That's amazing, so. That's all I have.
Thank you, Greg. Those plumbing lines, are they talking, we're just talking about one section, right? Where the problem area was of it.
We're talking about one section, but I would be shocked if that was the only section that was bad.
Right, so has there been any effort to like preemptively scope the lines and look for?
We're hoping to have Chase do that when he comes back to look at the ones we know are not good, to look at the other ones. And then cross our fingers, yeah, it's a little frightening.
Yeah, all right, thank you, Greg. Barb?
Continuing to work with the staff here, Sarah and Dutch, and the community ed and Cindy and Angie for the MSBA credit card process and our full live date is scheduled for July 1st. So we're still working with My School Bucks, working out the tweaks of all the different accounts or things that people can pay for. Rachel Stackhouse is now going to start taking over doing the monthly mail claims, so I'm working with her on that and double checking the numbers so that she can eventually take all of that over. With the
It's been a labor of love to get some of that off of Barb's plate.
With the title change and moving to the banks from SERVs, they changed the due date for any amendments to April 30th. So I've been working with Lindsay Meyer on that so that before you could be off in your whole budget, as long as you were on in total, now it had to be by object code. You had to be within 10%. So that set an alarm off for everybody that has to work with title and regs. So hopefully we're very accurate in our numbers this year. Last Friday attended a Career Tech Ed meeting that was held in Rochester. Learned a little bit more about Career Tech Ed and got some contact information that I'm connected with the rest of the administrators on maybe some new ideas we can probably implement here. We got an influx of a few more applications for educational benefits now that they are offering the summer EBT. So that information will be going out, and then the Mars reporters will get that sent out, so these people will get those EBT cards in the mail. I'm assuming like it was when it was the PEBT, for them to buy their groceries this summer. Even though we're offering the summer food program here again, I've said this before, but this is the last summer food service program. I have sent an email to MDE asking if we have an issue in this kitchen, because this is the only building that qualifies for the summer program, if it could get moved up to middle high school, I've got no word back, just trying to be proactive and having a plan. Working on scholarships, negotiation spreadsheets, student activity requests coming in, as well, close out class of 2024 in a month after school is out. I did attend the Masville meeting in Rochester since it was so close this last year. It was a 3-day conference. Normally it's in Duluth. It's a good thing to attend, but it's sometimes you find out things that you didn't know that you wish you didn't know. Some of the things that they talked about, one of the sessions I attended was on insurance and how a lot of insurance companies are dropping school districts. And that because of, they're saying that for every dollar an insurance company takes in, they're spending at least $1.20 to $1.30 out. So look for your insurance rates to go up. Some of them are saying that your deductible now will be 1% of the value of your property. And that if your roofs aren't less than 15 years old, they won't cover them. And so that was all new information. So we will need to work with our carrier, but it's also part of the study that we need to be looking at and what we need to improve our insurance.
So what are the big claims that schools are having, that the roofs and things of that nature?
Well, it's just because of all of the other disasters that are happening around. I mean, the day I was up there, there was the tornadoes going through the middle section, and they're like, that destruction is just wiping out. And so even though we aren't personally affected, the company, the insurance company is, and passes the premiums on to everybody else. So they're just saying these are some of the solutions they're trying to figure out how they can stay above water, and raising the deductibles, only covering certain things based on their age, that kind of thing. So, also went to a summer unemployment session, and they're saying right now the surplus is what covers it, but it will in fact be on the school district to cover those costs when that surplus is gone, unless legislation comes in and says, oh, no, you can levy for that like we can for the other levy or unemployment. The summer is different.
Which in turn then would be an additional tax on our.
Which would be, if they let us levy for it, will be an additional tax on our local taxpayers. The free meals, I went to a session on that. One group was saying that's only good until 2025, and others like, no, it's permanent in statute. But they're trying to advocate for the USDA to offer it at the federal level, so it's not just on the state of Minnesota, because right now it's just for the state. I went to a session on special ed, and at first they said the highly qualified pairs needed to be for this current school year, which set me into panic. But now they're saying, when Paul Farron was talking, they're not going to do it for 23-24, but they will start auditing in 24-25. So we do need to have all of our special ed pairs highly qualified for me to code down to special ed, otherwise it coded to the general ed. One of the good parts of this last legislation is we get the reserve for the student support personnel aid. We didn't know what was gonna happen. We get HFES money, we get our own money. At least now we can reserve our money, we don't have to pay it back like the initial legislation said, so we can decide on the categories, whether it's counselor, nurse, school, psychologist, social worker. Those are the categories. What our plans are gonna be as a district going forward. But at least the money sits there, we don't have to pay back the state of Minnesota for this last year. Earn safe and sick time now, the legislation has it set so that anything going forward now will be in those parameters of what it can be used for, not the bank. So starting 1/1 of 2024, basically it turns sick time into PTO, and people can use it for pretty much anything, which is a concern we had about not only paying it out, but how do we find subs for all the time, those absences. So, and there's still more in all of the legislation that I haven't even gone through to figure out how it's gonna affect us.
We got a lot of emails today explaining some of this stuff, but I'm still confused by some of it. And one of them, that we talked about previously in the negotiations part was anytime there's an e-learning day, all employees in the district will get paid their full wage for that day. And Linda didn't know about that, and so I shared that with her, but she thought it was something else, so who knows? I mean,
And I was in a medical session this afternoon, so school board, or business official meeting, and they had questions too, and they're like, even though the last session we needed clarification on, we didn't need clarification on this session. Any questions?
Just something to add, the insurers now, remember, are leaving the state. And in addition, they're not covering for cosmetic damage. So if your roof gets hail damage, as long as there are no leaks, they won't replace the roof for cosmetic damage. So we'll be seeing more of that in the.
So like if your roof doesn't match, like one part standard, you might have different colors or.
And it's gonna be that way for cars as well. Your vehicle is drivable, but it's been cosmetically damaged, you may not get the same type of insurance coverage that you've had before. And some of the insurers are increasing by 3 times premiums.
Are there any more updates on the HVAC project in Winona? Financially, are there monies due at any certain time from each district, or what's the status on that?
Spencer,
We'll have a meeting tomorrow night again, I'll bring the stuff back, I mean, on Wednesday night. And they're getting ready to move in over there, so.
By move in, you mean rehab or?
No, they're going over to the mall.
taking possession of the
Not
building.
taking possession of the building, yeah.
Which they have done. We did talk about this at our PAC meeting on April 30th. They have taken possession of the building. They've notified the current tenants. They get 6 months to relocate the current tenants, and they're working on some drawings basically of how they're gonna renovate the space. With the anticipated move-in date of July 1, 2025.
And I believe there was a change there. I thought we were on the west side of the building at first, but I think we're on the east side now, the last I heard. Have you heard that too, Craig? Well, I'll know more on Wednesday night. I know she's gonna have the agenda out here tomorrow, so.
I'm trying to think, is west by the car dealership?
I should
Or is
be.
that south?
No, it would be going toward the car, going toward the highway.
Or the car dealership on the right or across the street?
The Ford dealership on the same side of 61.
I know that sign we were gonna agree to have them sit there, that sign there too, and I'm not sure if that's in the east or west right now.
I don't know about that.
But,
So they're redrawing the floor plans for the building. So when we voted on the joint powers agreement, they said they would be in that building by August of this year. And now they are at least 8 months, or no, almost a year behind schedule and redrawing floor plans. So at what point do we get to revisit the agreement that we originally entered into? I mean, the joint powers agreement that we voted on and passed, when they came in here and presented that to us, they said, they made some promises. Those are the promises. One was, we're moving in August of this year, 2024. And
Part of that was because the leases were going to expire with like the Oka School and that kind of thing, right? Wasn't that your understanding?
I don't know why it was, but the point is, they
No,
said the building was
I'm
gonna
with
be renovated and ready to go by August of 2024.
You want me to have Deb come in and explain where everything's at?
That would be interesting to know. I mean, it seems like the snowball is starting to roll down the hill, and I'm afraid the next thing that's gonna happen is, oh, we need more than $15 million that this project was originally capped at, right? The joint powers agreement.
Mhm.
And
And I would be curious to see what the interest rate they finally locked in because there was a gap there where the rates were quite a bit different than they are now.
Right.
So I don't know what happened with that.
That Spectrum, they got into with them because Hocus sent them a bill or a lease of about 13% increase for their rent. I'm not sure if it's 13 or not, I'd have to.
For the
go
Hocus
back,
location?
but it's up there, you know, and then of course they said they didn't ask them for it either, so that thing should be getting squared around here pretty quick too. Actually, your wife would probably know more about it than I would there, James.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
It would be nice to have her come in and update.
I'll ask her if she can come in June or July.
That'd be great.
I'll see her here on 2 nights, I guess. Wednesday night I'll be up there, 6 o'clock, or 5:30. Actually, go see the kids graduate from the RVA over there, so I'm gonna go up. We got 9 board members out of the 14 school districts gonna be there, and I don't think they count that charter school one, you know, so they've got a bunch graduating up there on Wednesday night at 5:30. So I'll be up there. I'll bring all this stuff back to the board meeting too, that you can look at too. Maybe I'll drop it off at your house there too. I've got it here on Wednesday night as well.
I think June would be better, and then if she has it prepared, she can send it ahead of time, so we can actually go through it and have questions prepared.
And I got the JPA, I can send that back out. Maybe we should do a little refresher read on the JPA for what we originally signed versus what's happening now. I don't know, but we need to stay up to date.
And I know in the lower right-hand corner of their website, there's a thing you can look at that shows the latest updates too, so.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Okay.
Thank you, Barb. Old business items, there are none. Just as a quick side note there, what I'd like to do moving forward for old business items is put the strategic plan on there. Because every month the strategic planning committee's been meeting and we've been picking one of our goals and kind of highlighting that goal and building action plans. And I feel like half of you guys are being left out if you're not on the committee. So maybe, what do you think of that, John? Like doing like a little refresher on what happened in that month's meeting at the board meeting type thing? All right, so I'll work with Karen and Craig to maybe try to get that as old business. That would fit under old business, wouldn't it, Craig?
Yep.
Okay. New business items, school policies. Have everybody had an opportunity to read those? Any questions?
I haven't, but I do, and I did get a chance to look at everything here because I've been sick here lately. But I want to know what's going on, if we got that, if the MSBA, if they put the teeth into that progressive discipline. What do they got, Craig, for the corporal punishment and the bullying prohibition policy? It's the worst day of teaching I ever went through in 52 years over there when I had a student teacher and I couldn't do anything about it. I think the only policy that works is the 3 strikes and you're out. I mean, you don't get to use the F word in our civil society. You get to court of law and that's contempt of court. They will fine them there.
Yeah, I guess I'm not entirely sure what you're asking me.
Well, you said that we could read them, I guess. That's what I'll have to
Here's
do.
the student discipline policy, 506. It does address, I think what you're referring to as far as what's acceptable with language and so forth.
Okay.
And then we have the behavior matrix here. This is in the student handbook, page 25 of the student handbook. It kind of outlines what the first, second, third offenses would be for some of these stuff.
And I do love it here. It's yellow highlighted. You can't miss it. The use of profanity or obscene language or the possession of obscene materials. It's right there. It's not allowed. So we've got to enforce it as well.
I guess as a follow-up, I would just ask, John and Nate, how did the year go with the policies in place? Do you guys feel comfortable that students were corrected and action was taken by teachers? Because first you guys have to know about it. And then where does it go from there? And are you satisfied with the way the students responded to the policies?
Well,
Which policy?
Well, the bullying or the discipline?
Specifically, because this is the first year utilizing this, wasn't it?
second year. This
Okay.
is the second year. So that was created 2 years ago. Last year, we sat down and really tried to do some tweaks. And I think this year, again, we have some things that we definitely want to tweak and add in there as well. You know, am I satisfied? It's kind of a loaded question because, I mean, do I feel like we're moving in the right direction? Yes. Is there more that I think that we can accomplish? Absolutely. And am I satisfied? No, I'm never going to be satisfied. You know, John and I have talked a little bit about, you know, what are some of the areas that we've tried to really focus on this year. We've already talked about what are some areas that we need to make kind of the priority for next year to make sure that, you know, we're winning in some areas, but now we got to win in more areas, I guess you would say. So, I don't know, does that answer your question?
Well, kind of, sort of. I mean, are there, you know, to answer your question, Liam, specifically looking at the discipline, punishment, and the bullying policies.
Is it being followed through
Huh?
on? Is it followed through on? Is that kind
Well,
of the question?
Are the policies strong enough for staff to hold kids accountable? And if they're not, do they need to be tweaked? And can we do that? And if the policies, I mean, you got the best policy in the world, but if you're not getting the information from the teachers, I mean, if a teacher's getting sworn at and the kids are laughing about it and it's become a joke, is there anything being reported to you that can be done so a student understands it and all the witnesses to the foul language understand that they can't get away with it, neither can I? Because I don't have too many dogs in the race here, but when I talk to people, they're concerned about some of the language and the way kids act out in school, and if it's being handled, then I don't have an answer for that. I'm assuming if it doesn't develop into a fight or an arrest or a bullying incident that comes my way, then it's being handled. So I guess I'm kind of long-winded here, but is there something that we can do as a board? Is there more that needs to be done in training, in-service training with teachers? Is there, you know, just how did the year go and what can we do? If it didn't go well, can we make it better? If it went very well, let's make sure it goes well next year. So I guess I'm asking a lot of questions all wrapped up in one.
I will say that language is one of our top priorities for next year for sure. And honestly, I can tell you that there are kids who don't even realize that they're saying it because I will catch students and they're like, I'm like, what did you just say? Nothing. Like, and I'm like, you just said the F-bomb or whatever like that. And they're like,
Probably grew up in the house.
they're
you
like,
know, too.
they're like, I did? And I said, yeah. Oh, well, my bad. That's just how I talk. I said, well, that's a problem in itself. If you don't even realize that you're dropping F-bombs in a casual conversation, that's a bigger problem. And I would say that, yeah, language in general is, it's changed a lot. And, you know, what is acceptable? I mean, I can flat out tell you there are times I can't say, would you say this to your parents? Because the answer is now yes. I can't ask that question anymore. You know, would you do this? You know, would you do this at home? And they say, yep, I would. And I believe them. I don't think they're just blowing smoke. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we are up against is for some kids, not all, and I, you know, can't focus on just a few, but the only structure in their life is when they're at school.
I coach girls softball, and they first day of practice, one of them, I don't remember what she said. So we start 5 hill sprints, no matter what, is what we start with at the end of practice. And I think by that first day, I just said, well, you got 1 more, 2 more, 3 more. And I said, then when we're done, I sat down and talked to them. I said, all right, there's no swearing, no bad mouthing, any of that. You're doing hill sprints. And that's been, got my point across crystal clear, and they don't like running the hill. So,
Yeah.
but I said, there's no place for it here at school, at home. You know, you gotta be courteous of everybody around you.
media shows these very wealthy NFL coaches and players using the F word almost every other word out of their mouths when they're talking to the players. And this is one of the top shows on TV. And as long as it becomes acceptable for society to have that, we're going to have difficulty with kids see NFL players as role models in many respects. They see the millions of dollars a year that these players are getting, and they think, well, if they can do it, what's wrong? It's a problem.
Well, I guess, my focus is if you've got a teacher, young teacher, trying to hold kids accountable and there's just so much disrespect and abusive language, you're gonna lose good teachers. And maybe you have, I don't know, but at what point do they cross the line that we as a school district try to take care of the problem? And how do we take care of it? In a quick, discipline, if it comes quickly, usually works a lot better than if you wait a month before you deal with it. But
I think there's.
and I'm not saying you guys are doing anything wrong. I'm just saying, if kids are coming from home using that language, and then they come into an environment where you're supposed to be educating, and you've got young teachers, old teachers that are being abused or feel that they're being disrespected, you're going to lose teachers. That's just a revolving door of problems.
Kind of brings up a good point. If it is happening and it's not being addressed, are there some that just are not telling you anymore? I mean, if there's a student.
We got to pause for a minute. When kids come to the office for swearing, we follow through with it. And I can show the data on how many kids served ISS this year for using poor language.
Then you got.
Do some not get reported? Yeah, some teachers probably don't report it as much as others. But it does get addressed. And we need to be better next year. We need to be better. Our teachers need to be better next year at not normalizing it and making sure they report it right away and that we all follow through.
And then you got a student teacher that doesn't think it's an issue.
Yep.
Both you guys told me that.
Yeah,
You wonder why I'm upset, and then I start reading this and I get more upset. Any procedures, they're protected in here. You can't take recess away from a kid. Wow. And then here, any procedures determined appropriate for ensuring victims of bullying who respond with behavior not allowed under the school's behavior problems policies have access to a remedial response consistent with Minnesota statute section 121A.031 semicolon. Okay. So I mean, you're dealing with the state of Minnesota and their laws too that you got to follow. So
I guess the bottom line is that the incident that you're referring to, that was just disrespect of a teacher, and you can't be the language police. Obviously, you can't. But what you can do, and I'm not saying you're not, I'm just saying the focus of us and everybody should be making sure kids understand that you can't be talking like that in front of your teacher because it's disrespectful. And you don't disrespect your teacher here. Simple as that. So, maybe that should be the plan of attack moving forward.
May I jump in here because I'm listening and we've had this discussion with FCC coming into the elementary. And so that is kind of my concern too, because we'll be bringing in kids from other districts into our school that may have habits like that. And we're really big on culture and climate.
We haven't
here.
agreed to that yet.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we don't, and we've had this discussion at admin, but just want to make sure we don't sign a contract and bring in kids into our school when our own concerns.
Yeah, the one that I have sitting on my desk that I haven't sent in isn't that part of it.
Okay, yeah, because I want to open up our school to.
I'm not following. I'm not following what you're saying there.
FCC would like to do a what do you call it? Day treatment program, and we haven't agreed to that, but
They want to start
they
with
would like to
elementary,
do-
they would like a room in our school for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And And
For our own kids in our own district?
there wouldn't be any elementary students in our district that would be using it, but perhaps middle school, high school, I don't know. But I just, and I'm just trying to be transparent. I just don't want to bring in kids from other districts that have the potential for ruining our
What's that?
Is that even a possibility of another district? Like, another district?
Not if we don't agree to it.
Okay.
well, and
Family and Children's Center.
And I thought maybe even because a lot of people in the county may be coming, so maybe the criminal justice center would be a more neutral spot. That's just me.
That's a good idea, actually. To have it.
Cool. All right.
I'd like to revisit the disjointed conversation we had. I think for next year, Nathan and I have talked about this many times. I see two things to add as sub-goals to our goal number one, our district strategic goal number one, and that is tardies during the school day and language. And everything people are saying, it's most likely the language isn't as bad and rampant throughout the school all the time as you may think. We do hold kids accountable, but data would show that there's repeat offenders when it comes to language, that the ISSs don't work. The punishment doesn't work. It happens, it repeats, it repeats, it repeats. So I think that we need to have that part of our plan for next year and come up with a solution that's beyond discipline, because discipline doesn't work like people would imagine it would.
And according to the laws, or you gotta give them remedial assistance too, I see.
So,
And just kind of like a slash classroom behavior type.
yeah, and I think
Because
it's,
they may not be swearing, but they can still be disrespectful without swearing or using bad language. And just talking when they shouldn't be talking over, I mean, that's disrespectful too.
Well, our office referral form has basically three reasons that you can be removed from class. And the first one is if you're disrupting the learning of others, you're being unsafe, or you're being disrespectful. And it's written right in, I took it right out of the policy when I made my office referral form. Here's how you can be removed from class.
and we have the data on all of that. That's DERS data. It's the data we use for goal number one, so we can look at that and dive into it. And by the time language has resulted in DERS data, meaning it's to the point of suspension in school or out of school, that means that there's been multiple steps before then. Because the very first time it happens, it's not on that level. So that will give us an idea of, how effective is the discipline. And my gut, as the person who's taking the lead on most of those, is it doesn't work as well as we think. So we got to come up with other.
When is the next meeting?
Well,
Is that coming up?
That was one of the things I was gonna bring up. I think it's June 5th. Can we save that for the board member reports? Because if we can hopefully maybe try to move it. If you can't, you can't, but I can't make June 5th. Are you're talking about the strategic planning committee? Yeah. That's, we'll get on that in a second. Okay, school policies, everybody good? The way they said? Okay, board member reports. Tim, you got anything?
No.
Right, Dan? Lee?
The only thing I have is that email you sent for that book.
Sure.
Excellent. I'm only halfway through because I have to pause because it's a lot of information. It's a lot of good information. But you should read it, listen to it, or however you absorb the information. It's really good.
That's okay.
I'll take a book too if you've got one.
You bet. I got plenty.
And question for Addie, our possible all-state school board member, you a junior or senior this year?
I'm a junior now, I'll be a senior.
Okay. Because we want to nominate you for the all-state school board member, the student board member. Nathan Harguth won it about 5 or 6 years back. It's a pretty good scholarship. And I'll give you the best recommendation ever.
Thank you.
You do a great job. I think she needs a big round of applause. That's all I got.
And Maggie did apply for the scholarship.
Oh,
this year,
good,
and she
good.
did
So
get
we
it.
got our
She-
senior.
She unfortunately didn't get it, but she did get a recognition
Good.
from the school board association, so.
That's good. Thank you, Tim.
I think you had anything, Spencer, Dirk?
No.
All right, couple quick things and we'll get out of here. The June, the strategic planning committee meeting is currently set for June 5th at 2 p.m. That's a Wednesday. I'll be in Atlanta. Is there any way that you guys could maybe do it the last week in May? Would that be a possibility or not? Just because it's a big one, because that's when John's bringing in all that data, Deere's data, and stuff like that. I thought it was going to be really interesting to see. So I'd really like to be there if possible. Maybe we don't need to sit here and do this right now in a meeting, but
I'm open to it.
I'm open to it.
yeah. Okay. Well, at least we're open to it, and we'll work on it at a different time. But awesome, perfect. We'll try to bump that into the last week of May sometime if that's possible. Okay. I sent y'all an email earlier in the month about this book. I thought it was really good. Great on their behalf. How or why school boards fail and how yours can become effective. I'm not saying we're failing as a school board, but I don't know. I wish I had read this book as part of like a school board orientation. And the main reason why I bought these books, I bought 7 copies, isn't to like, I mean, you guys can borrow them, but I want them to be district copies. And any new school board members that come in, whoever the school board chair is at the time, that person will have these books and maybe it'll be part of their orientation process. Because right now, we don't really have a whole lot. You know, we have a mentor, which is great, but then we got, you know, a thing or two with the MSBA, and then they throw you to the wolves. And anyway, ton of good stuff in there. I thought it was great. The main summary or the main theme of the book is how you can get bogged down as a school board focusing on things other than student outcomes. You know, it's really easy to get distracted with stuff. I look back on some of the big ticket items that we've had to address over the years, and for a year and a half that I've been here, and most of them didn't have anything to do with student outcomes. It was like, you know, wrestling co-ops were hot big ticket items, and HFED and things like this. So anyway, I thought it was a fascinating book. I'll leave a stack of them if you want one, great. If not, whatever. But maybe, you know, as the year moves on, maybe we can start working on shifting our focus toward student outcomes. The big problem I had with the book is that, you know, how do you measure that? And the only measurement that I'm aware of, and I'm sure we have others, but the one that I'm familiar with is MCA test scores, right? And as we all probably know, they can be a little bit misleading, because how do you get a 10th grader to take a reading comprehension test on a random day when they have no incentive to do so, right? It doesn't go to work, and they have zero incentive to do it. Why would they come in, sit down, and spend 4 hours or whatever it is taking a reading test and try to knock it out of the park? Of course they're not going to do it. So you see these test scores in elementary school, like they just do this. They all do. And we're better than the state for sure. I have a bunch of graphs I want to send everybody. I thought it was really interesting. We're way better than state average in most grade levels. But anyway, point being, I don't know if that's the best way to evaluate student outcomes. It's a way, but maybe there's other ways that we can do that and kind of cross-reference the data and not rely solely on standardized tests as your only source of how kids are. Anywho, I figure maybe a curriculum committee meeting, we can kind of go over some of the other methods that we have to evaluate how folks are progressing in reading and things like that. You know what I mean? Let's see here. Oh, strategic. Did we talk about doing a board showcase in June about the strategic plan, or should we instead just plan on taking one goal and putting it under old business? Because I thought we were going to do like this big board showcase thing, but maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we just every month have old business.
I like the idea of putting it on each whole business, because then it's continual, not a
Yeah,
one-time deal.
okay, so let's not.
I would like to, we talked one time about doing a summer board retreat and going through like the MCA data over the years and things like that. And
Yeah,
it wouldn't necessarily be a business meeting, but we could talk about what do we want to do to look at those things.
yeah, I need to talk about that anyway, because the spreadsheet that goes back 2016 is different. The numbers, some of the numbers are different than what you see on the Minnesota
School report.
school report card. And it's only usually off by like a percentage or two, but it's not exactly matching, so anyway, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. That thing's pretty awesome, though. That.
It is awesome, as long as the data is correct, you know. More on that stuff to come. June is our mid-year superintendent, or no, summative evaluation, superintendent evaluation thing, so I'll try to get, you know, we want to stay on schedule every January and June doing this, so I'll try to get like an evaluation form sent out before the June meeting, and we'll take that as it comes. And then the last thing, speaking of things that school boards focus on that have nothing to do with student outcomes, but this does annoy me. You know, our school logo, like, you know how many different school logos we have floating around? I don't know why we can't just have it, like Nate's shirt there, for example, that's a Native American spear. You can tell by the head of the spear, that's a Native American made spear. It's not like a medieval or Spartan spear. Yet we have some logos that are swords, medieval swords, pointing down, which is a sign of surrender, which I don't understand why you'd ever have your sword down. Swords are always up. And we have, and then some, we have the shield with Native American spears. So you have multiple different versions of this floating around. I've taken pictures of T-shirts that I see folks wearing. My son has one. I have no idea where he got the thing, but it doesn't match the logo. Anyway, why can't we have like this shouldn't be that hard. Have like a contest in the high school.
We do have a policy on approved ones. One of them.
One of them's not approved.
Well, we have.
Some of those designs are not from the school.
Yeah.
They're from the booster clubs.
Okay, so this is where the T-shirts are coming.
One of our policies has the official logos.
Which is swords down.
I don't know.
We should get the swords up.
I didn't know that, but I mean,
Yeah, it's the sign of surrender. So. Point being, either switch the swords or go to spears and do a medieval spear instead of a Native American spear with medieval shield. Listen to me blabble about stuff that makes no difference for student outcomes. And I didn't learn anything from my book, but this should be a relatively easy thing to get ironed out, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's one of my goals for this year that I don't want to spend much time on, but it shouldn't be hard to bang out. That's all I got.
One quick follow-up for your assessment of, the quality outcome.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a quantitative, but each year when the newspaper prints the seniors and what they're going to do next year.
Yeah.
I find that a tremendous way of assessing how we've done. And when you see the vast majority of them saying, well, I'm going on in trade school or four-year college or a career in this or that, I think that's a qualitative way of looking at our successes. Maybe we can have that formalized to the board each year, just for the board members to see that.
well, there is what's called SLEDS data out there, and so they look at how many kids went to college, how many kids went to college, and when I say college, obviously that can mean many different things. I know our mine was 4-year, but went into a program, how many finished a minimum of a 2-year program, how many of them didn't just go in year one and then drop out of college. There is that data out there. It's through SLEDs, so.
What is it called, SLEDs?
Yeah,
Student
SLED.
long-term educational data system, I think.
But that's only as good as completion of it, right?
Right.
So I mean, if I don't complete it,
This is
my
all based on
information's
self-reporting, self-reported data?
I
I
don't
mean,
even know.
I would assume.
I don't think it's just self-reported. I think that I don't, long story short, I don't know, but we have looked at that. I have looked at that in the past.
well, I know we've talked about that a long time ago, like trying to track kids after they leave school and see what the actual, the long-term outcomes are. It's just a challenge is figuring out how to go about doing that. They can just SLEDs thing as a place to start.
Well, and this year, before the seniors left, I have 2 that I need to catch tomorrow. I had all of them give me their personal email address and phone number. Phone number was optional, but at least an email address that we could reach out to them. So I could, if we ever do want to reach out to the class, and granted, the people that I've talked to that said when you do something like this, like 30% is a really good return.
Sure.
But at least now I have them one way of having all their, because before I did it, like you go to the class of 2023, I have nothing for them. So something I did this year.
Everybody good?
And on a positive note, I should have said this. I can tell you that every senior is going to graduate this year.
That's 100% great. There's another way of evaluating student outcomes.
As of today, they've all made it.
That's awesome.
So.
That's awesome. All right, excellent, good news. All right, then in that case, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I got a second?
Second.
Dan beat you to it. Dan seconds. It is 7:44. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0 meeting adjourned.
Thank you.